a shadow appeared over Manhattan before anyone understood something had gone terribly wrong. No sirens warned the city. No portals ripped open in the sky. No triumphant music announced a new hero. Only silence. High above the skyline, a small figure hovered motionless against the fading orange sunset, watching the city below with unreadable calm. At first, nobody panicked. People pointed phones upward from crowded sidewalks. Helicopters drifted closer for better footage. Online speculation spread faster than the evening news could keep up. Another soup reveal. A Vought stunt. Maybe some foreign hero making an entrance. Vought even tried to control the narrative. An exciting new international hero partnership, Ashley Barrett announced nervously during a rushed press conference. But deep beneath Vought Tower, alarms screamed through every floor, because the thing hovering over New York was not in their database, and worse, none of their satellites could identify him. Frieza folded his arms and looked down at the city with detached disinterest. So much noise, he murmured, and yet so little worth preserving. Below him, traffic locked bumper to bumper. Thousands stood in the streets, staring upward. Some filmed, some prayed. Some ran. Frieza ignored them all. His scouter beeped quietly as it swept across the city. Power levels, military capabilities, biological mutations. Primitive, chaotic, frail. He watched emergency vehicles attempting to organize beneath him and almost smiled. Even their panic lacked efficiency. Then one signal suddenly stood out, far above the others. Frieza's eyes narrowed slightly. At last, something on this insignificant world possessed enough strength to briefly interrupt his boredom. "How unusual," he said softly. "One specimen appears almost functional." Inside Vought Tower, Homelander stood before the massive executive suite windows, staring toward the distant figure suspended over Midtown. His jaw tightened. "What is that thing?" No one answered. Even Ashley stayed silent, because Homelander could feel it. For the first time in his life, someone else radiated absolute superiority, and he hated it instantly. Worse, some buried instinct told him he might actually lose. "Get me a camera crew," Homelander said coldly. "I'll handle this." Minutes later, live broadcasts interrupted every network in America. Homelander shot into the sky, cape snapping behind him as he smiled confidently for the cameras. Citizens below cheered immediately. Finally, their greatest hero had arrived. Homelander stopped 50 feet across from the alien, hovering level with him above the avenue grid. "Well," he said casually, "you picked the wrong planet to threaten." Frieza blinked once. "Threaten?" His voice remained calm, almost curious. "If extermination had been my intention, your atmosphere would already be ash." His gaze drifted briefly toward the cameras orbiting nearby. "And yet your dominant protector arrives, posing for an audience." The smile on Homelander's face twitched slightly. The cameras caught it. That alone made him furious. "I don't know what you are," Homelander snapped. "But around here, I'm the strongest." Frieza stared at him in silence. The creature's confidence was fascinating, in the way malformed life occasionally was. "You announce your superiority before testing it," Frieza observed quietly. "How very terrestrial." Homelander attacked instantly. A sonic boom detonated behind him as he lunged forward, fist cocked back, and aimed straight at Frieza's temple. New Yorkers screamed below, but Frieza didn't move. Homelander's punch slammed into the side of the being's tail. The impact froze him dead in the air. A circular shockwave burst outward, blowing out windows across multiple blocks and rattling nearby skyscrapers. Homelander's eyes widened. Impossible. Nothing had ever stopped him before. Frieza regarded him with clinical indifference. "So this is your apex." Then he flicked Homelander across the forehead. The motion was almost lazy. Homelander vanished backward like a launched missile, tearing through the sides of 7 skyscrapers in rapid succession before skipping across the Hudson River and crashing deep beneath the surface, hard enough to split the water into towering walls. Silence consumed Manhattan. Every camera remained live, every citizen watched, and for the first time in history, Homelander looked weak. Deep underwater, Homelander drifted between collapsing currents, eyes wide with panic. His ribs were broken. Broken. Nothing had ever broken him before. If people saw him like this, if they stopped believing. Above the river, Frieza examined the distant skyline. "These creatures built monuments to themselves," he said softly, "without first earning survival." His eyes tracked the blinking lights of evacuation helicopters weaving between towers. They cling to structure as though it grants permanence. Suddenly the clouds split apart again. Queen Maeve descended from the east. A-trains skidded to a stop across a rooftop. Black Noir landed silently on a nearby tower. The Deep hovered uncertainly above the harbour. Starlight floated beside Maeve, electricity crackling around her hands. The 7 formed a loose circle around Frieza, careful to keep their distance. Vought had panicked. "Throw everything at him." Maeve spoke first. "We don't know what you want." Frieza did not acknowledge her. A-train attacked first, vanishing in a blur as shockwaves exploded across rooftops. He circled Frieza hundreds of times in seconds, striking from every angle with punches fast enough to crack concrete below. Frieza casually caught one of his fists mid-strike. The sudden stop shattered the rooftop beneath them. A-train's eyes widened in terror. Frieza tilted his head slightly. "Velocity without restraint," he said. "Your body will fail long before your ambition does." He glanced briefly at the trembling muscles in A-train's arm. "Your cardiovascular system is already deteriorating." Then he swung him by the arm and hurled him through 3 buildings like a rag doll. Before A-train could recover, Frieza appeared above him instantly and drove a kick into his spine hard enough to crater the street below. Asphalt erupted upward in molten chunks as A-train collapsed, twitching into the impact crater. Starlight screamed and unleashed twin blasts of energy. Golden light flooded the skyline and slammed directly into Frieza's back. The explosion lit up Manhattan. Smoke swallowed him whole. For one hopeful second, nobody moved. Then Frieza slowly floated out of the smoke, completely unharmed. "You discharge energy instinctively," he observed, "like an animal baring its teeth." His eyes narrowed faintly at the unstable fluctuations surrounding her. Undisciplined output. Excessive waste. Starlight fired again desperately, pouring every ounce of power she had into a continuous beam. Frieza raised his hand and walked through it. The beam bent around him uselessly. He reached her, grabbed her by the face, and slammed her downward through the roof of a skyscraper. The entire building shook violently as floor after floor collapsed beneath her descent. Black Noir attacked next without a word. Blades flashed toward Frieza's throat with machine-like precision. Frieza leaned aside effortlessly, avoiding every strike by inches before driving his tail into Noir's chest. Armor shattered. Noir flew backward through the air and crashed into a tower crane hard enough to fold the steel structure in half. Frieza watched him tumble away. Silent, efficient, conditioned, he noted. At least someone attempted refinement. Maeve roared and charged in from above. Unlike the others, she didn't hesitate. Her punch actually forced Frieza back half a foot. The city froze. Frieza looked at her for a moment. "A rare anomaly," he said quietly. You possess the instinct to resist extinction. Maeve attacked again and again, each blow creating thunderous shockwaves across the skyline. Frieza blocked casually with one arm while drifting backward through the air. Then he finally retaliated. A single elbow smashed into Maeve's ribs. The crack echoed across the rooftops. Maeve coughed blood as Frieza grabbed her by the throat and hurled her through an office building. She burst out the opposite side, trailing debris, before crashing into the street below. The Deep stared in horror. I don't think we can win this." Frieza appeared directly in front of him. The Deep barely had time to gasp before Frieza drove a knee into his stomach and sent him plunging into the harbour like artillery fire. The impact detonated a massive wall of water across the docks. Frieza watched the harbour churn beneath him. And this one survives through adaptation alone. Above them all, Homelander erupted from the river behind Frieza with a roar, water spiralling off his body as he rocketed upward. Blood covered his face. His eyes glowed wildly red. "I'm going to kill you!" Twin beams of heat vision tore across the sky toward Frieza's back, carving glowing lines through the clouds and bathing the city in crimson light. Frieza vanished. Homelander's eyes widened. Too late. Frieza appeared beside him and drove a brutal punch into his ribs before following with a knee to the jaw that launched Homelander through a skyscraper. Homelander recovered mid-air and charged back, screaming. The two collided above Manhattan with a shockwave that shattered windows for miles. Homelander swung wildly with everything he had. Frieza weaved through every strike effortlessly before hammering punches into Homelander's stomach, chest, and face faster than cameras could track. Each hit detonated like artillery. Homelander's heat vision blasted wildly across the skyline, slicing buildings apart as Frieza battered him through the air. "You confuse fear with reverence," Frieza said coldly between blows. "Your species always does." He slipped past another desperate swing. And now that illusion collapses. Homelander roared and tackled Frieza downward. They crashed through Vought Tower together. Entire floors exploded outward as the two tore through the building in a storm of steel and fire. Employees fled screaming. Frieza caught Homelander by the cape and smashed him repeatedly through support columns before throwing him back out into open air. Homelander staggered, bloody and barely conscious. Frieza floated toward him slowly. Then he punched once. His fist drove straight into Homelander's abdomen. The impact folded Homelander around the blow before a colossal shockwave erupted outward, ripping through the clouds and flattening entire city blocks below. Cars flipped through the streets. Windows burst for miles. The remaining members of the Seven were hurled away by the pressure wave. Maeve smashed through a parking garage. Starlight spiraled into a billboard. Black Noir vanished into a collapsing office tower. Homelander rocketed backward through the air and crashed into Vought Tower chest first. The upper floors imploded around him as the building bent inward from the force. The world watched live as America's greatest hero failed. Not struggled, not fought bravely, failed. Frieza floated silently above the ruined skyline. Below him, fires spread through shattered streets and collapsed buildings. Sirens echoed endlessly through the smoke. He observed the chaos with the same detached focus one might give a laboratory experiment. Civilization, he thought, was always loudest at the moment of collapse. And somewhere beneath the rubble of Vought Tower, Homelander lay pinned under twisted steel, staring upward with genuine terror for the first time in his life. Deep down, he realized this was what everyone else felt around him. Frieza looked down at the burning city with distant contemplation. "This planet will survive," he said softly. "Whether its people deserve to is another matter entirely."